Now, friends, for light distribution, normally when we press the eye icon, in our light distribution, the output part, I mean the sky part, the white ground appears. There is the skybox part here. The skybox part is where you add the HDR image in Enscape. Friends, this is a very important part. When we add an HDR to the skybox, by pressing the folder icon here, the ambiance will really change, friends, because both the background image will appear in the background and the light provided by the HDR image will instantly change our ambiance, friends. That's why it's an important part. Textures were also important. You will make the settings in the textures as I have shown. I will change the textures here later, friends. Everyone can change the texture according to their preference. Because I've been using the texture here constantly, my eyes have gotten used to it. In every lesson, I will switch to a different texture. You can also choose one of the different textures I have provided if you wish. This way, you'll also get some practice. When you click on the Load Sky from Box section, there was an HDR I used in Corona. Let me show you that, friends. This HDR. I selected it and clicked open. I will give these to you anyway. You will also be able to load them. This will go to the background. The best feature of Enscape regarding HDR is that we can manipulate both the light intensity and the rotation, as well as the HDR's own lighting system. It's really a great topic, friends. Look, it has come to the background. Look, now it has come to the background, but since we haven't made any markings, it looks very bad in the back. Look, what kind of marking? The brightness point, sun direction part here. This means the following, friends. It means to align SketchUp's own sun with Enscape's own sun at the same point. When you click on this, friends, look, the light intensity will come here and it will give me a more natural light. And at the same time, you can rotate the sun part here by rotating it to bring it to this side. Let's say I left it in an area like this, let it stay like this for a moment, but the back is still matte. Why matte? Because there is no glass setting for the windows, friends. That's the first reason. The second is the lux value here. We need to increase the lux value of the HDR. Look, now I'm increasing the brightness part like this. Look, I've increased it, friends. The amount inside will also increase, but we need to give the light here some glass reflection values. Look, I've reached up to 20,000 lux. Look, friends, let me take a step back. Make an adjustment like this, and when I look from here, I have a nice view in the background. As you can see, when I take a render from here, this process will look quite nice, friends. Now, let's check these windows. Let's check the amount of light on the windows and proceed accordingly, friends. Look. Now, I've taken this to the eyedropper tool. I selected the glass. Look, my glass appears blue. I don't want blue. I brought its color here. Dark right in the middle. You can also pull this if you want. At the very end, it can be black. When you bring this over and reduce the opacity, friends, a more vibrant, more dynamic image will enter with a very nice content and lighting system. It looks very lively, very realistic, friends. We will take renders in different ways from here. Now, of course, since the amount of light inside has reached up to here, we will adjust the amount of light coming from here in different ways, friends. Each has its own setting. But before that, I want to show you a few examples of how these lights are created in the next lesson. That is an important topic as well. Look here, we have adjusted this lighting system. But right now, our system looks good. Yet there are areas that are not illuminated. We will use an amount of light from inside for those. In other words, we will use extra supportive lights from the spotlights, the spot beams here. We will use extra light from the windows and increase the amount of light inside, friends. We will continue by making adjustments later. We will proceed by supporting the missing or excessive parts. Friends, this is how this part is. In the second lesson, we will see how to turn any color into a light source. That is also a very important topic. Let's go to the parts over there. Let's go to the top over there, friends. Those parts are already related to that. In other words, it's the state of the color box. Here being turned into light, friends. That's why we will see them in the second lesson, and it will illuminate as we go inside, friends. Because in the current situation, it's a bit dark. These parts need to be illuminated naturally. At the same time, when we press the eye icon here, we haven't switched to ultra yet. When we switch to ultra, the amount of light will increase and It will make the amount of light inside more and of higher quality, friends.